Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo.
It's been a long break.
I'll tell you what. I'm Adam Diaz. That's Robin Grace. You know you had a good summer vacation when by the time you come back, it's fall.
It's been a month. It's been a month.
It's been a month since we recorded. It hasn't been a month since an episode came out because we had
it's been 2 weeks.
I'd say 2 or 3. I can't remember
3
how
weeks.
much.
It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, we had 2 in the can for when we were in Italy and the UK, which, in case anyone was wondering, was all right.
What?
Wasn't bad.
Oh no, it was dope as hell. Our whole trip was great. You can go to my Instagram. I posted a lot of stuff.
I also posted a lot of stuff. We posted the spooky stuff that we came across. Saw Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, which was cool.
Yep.
We went past Palazzo Dario, which I covered like right before we left.
And we did it in the dark, so.
And I wasn't lying. It was right next to our hotel, which was crazy. Crazy happenstance, was not planned, but yeah. I think what we're going to do is do like a recap of the whole vacation because it was long and there's a lot of stuff that happened.
But
and
it'll
just post it on like Patreon, make it free for everyone to see. It's not going to be something you got to pay for, just someplace that we can host the video. Because Robin's like, people don't care about what we have to say. They don't care about us or our lives. They're just here for the spooky stuff.
Well, then we met a couple spooky friends out there.
They were wonderful. They were so nice to us.
Yeah. I'm really glad that Gemini reached out and was just like, hey, like, you know.
They took us on a little tour of the Natural History Museum, which was
incredible.
Dope.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nikesh Money. He was super cool. But we had a good time, and I actually asked them, do you guys like it when we say things about what's going on in their lives? And they're just like, yeah. Like, it's nice to know. So we'll do that, but we'll do it separate because Robin doesn't want to conflate our personal lives, apparently, with the podcast.
Just know that the trip was great. It was fun. We fucked up our feet the first week. And then
there was a lot of walking involved.
Yeah.
I think we did close to 50 or 60 miles in the first week, like 30 miles in the first few days.
Yeah.
So there was a lot, but honestly, totally worth it.
Yep. Super fun. But you can listen to it later.
Once that goes up.
Yeah. And so now that we're back, it's fall.
It's October.
It's October.
It's spooky season. Welcome, folks. This is our month.
Yeah. So before we get into all of that, we just want to do a special shout out to our patrons over on Patreon.
Yeah. Shout out to Shandon, Dolce, Ethan, and Carl Olav. We sincerely appreciate you guys being at the shout out tier or above. It helps us significantly. And yeah, you guys are amazing. All of our patrons are amazing. All of our supporters are amazing. But those 4 by name, because that's the tier they're at. If you're interested in contributing to us financially, fiscally, however you want to say that, if you want to give us some dollar bills, y'all, it really helps with hosting fees. It helps with a lot of things, especially when we need to replace equipment because stuff breaks, because we've been doing this for 7 years. I think we've been on the exact same setup for the last 5.
Yeah.
And sometimes things don't go well. I do have some backup stuff because people have been so nice and generous, but you can go to patreon.com/Scaryish podcast if you're interested, just like these wonderful folks did. So one more time, shout out and thank you. But yeah, it's October. It's a new month. I was like, do we do a themed month like we've done before for October? Now that we're doing one topic per episode, that means we'd both have to adhere to the same theme. And I was like, Robin's not cooperative. She's not collaborative. She does not play well with others.
Halloween.
So, I mean, yeah, Halloween's great. So I guess we could tie stuff into Halloween in some way, shape, or form. This episode, I'm doing some lesser known cryptids. So that doesn't necessarily tie into Halloween. Although I made like a funny through line in my script, so it makes it Halloween-ish. But very excited that it's spooky season. We all know the scariest part about spooky season is that Mariah Carey is currently thawing, which is horrifying. And as soon as November 1st hits, she is unleashed upon the world. But for now, we can just live in that fear, bask in the glory of the fact that it's time for pumpkin carving and all that fun stuff. And yeah, I'm excited. So
I'm very excited. I've already got my Halloween costume picked out.
Well, you do Halloween at work.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a theme, and what's the theme this year?
Adam Sandler movies.
That's such a genius theme. I'm like, I want to come to work with you that day. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, so it'll be really cool. And it's cool because it's not just like all his movies that he acts in. It's like someone's going to do, I think it was Hotel Transylvania because he's in that one.
That's cute.
And stuff like that. So
I would try and do something fun. Like either like not Adam Sandler, but one of the characters in his show. or in his movies. I do like the Cajun dude who no one can understand. That would be really fun to do. Or I do something like super old school deep cut, like Opera Man from when he was still on SNL.
Oh.
I see this blank face. I'm like, yeah, that's what I would love to show up and be like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Opera Man. Like, aren't you an Adam Sandler fan?
As soon as it came out, this is what our idea is. This is what it's going to be. The theme is going to be. I was like, Little Nicky. Little Nicky is what I was going to do.
She always quotes Little Nicky.
I always quote Little Nicky, and
I know everyone thinks the masterpiece of cinema. How many Oscars did that win? I think it won all of them that year.
Well, no, but my coworker sent a picture, and she was just like, it was his angel tracksuit where it was like white with pink stripes. I couldn't find one. I would have loved to do that.
That's such a specific moment from that movie, though. So, like, if someone's a fan of Little Nicky, but not like a super fan, they might be like, the outfit's all wrong, But either way, I think you guys are going to have a great Halloween.
Yep, I'm going to be really sweaty because that puffy coat is so... Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God.
For me, I don't get to dress up. I mean, I guess I could to hand out candy.
Yeah.
But I'm doing what I do every year since I started making enough money where I could like add guacamole to my burritos for extra. And that is, I go to Costco. I spend a little bit more on candy to get full-size candy bars and give them out to all the kids because I want to be known as that house. And they look, that fucking guy gives out full-size candy bars.
Yeah, except we're not going to be here much longer. So
for this neighborhood, yeah. So,
but do you think it's weird if I ask all the kids or tell all the kids to get in the flask?
That is weird. But it would be really funny too. We'll see. I also wanted to get like those little booze bottles to hand out to the parents. Like, this is for you guys, and just like the stuff you get on the airplane. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. I'm excited. It's a great time. It's not my favorite time of the year, but it's tied for my favorite time of the year. So, anywho, I guess I can go ahead and just go right into my topic then.
Yeah.
So this week, for our triumphant return to the airwaves and your ear holes, I really wanted to do something spooky, like not true crime. I was like, let's steer away from true crime for this episode. For me specifically, it's the spooky season, y'all. It's such a wonderful, wonderful time. Everything starts to get decorated like the Haunted Mansion. People start planning their costumes like we just talked about. Kids want to dress up to be ghosts or ghouls or goblins or monsters. And then like older people want to dress up to be those same things or characters from like movies or TV or anime. Or some people plan a version of that that's the same but sexy instead, which is like amazing. So in honor of that, I'm going to cover 3 lesser known cryptids to give you all some inspiration for your costumes and maybe some spooks at the same time as well, because they have some pretty good stories to them.
All right.
Content warning. These cryptids may not all be able to convert easily to sexy versions. So if you're up for the challenge, go for it, but I don't recommend it for all of them.
Adam's already sent me pictures of some of these, and you could...
If you're talented, yeah. Well, there's varying levels of difficulty, and I will cover it at the end of each of these little mini...
But what if they what if they already are sexy versions of themselves?
Well, you talking about the cryptids themselves?
Yes.
I mean, if you're dressing up as them, then you have to do your best to match the energy that they're bringing.
Yeah.
So, we'll see, though. The first one I'm going to cover is one that I did not know. I've never heard of it, didn't know it existed until a couple of days ago, and it's known as the Beast of Busco. And
sounds hot already.
If you're new to the Beast of Busco like me, it's a cryptid from good old Indiana.
Okay.
Churubusco, Indiana, to be exact. I think I said it right. I might not have. Churubusco is like right by Fort Wayne, which means that, that might not mean shit to anyone who's not from Indiana like I am, but it means that I grew up like an hour away from it, and I've never heard of this thing before. I also apologize for saying Churubusco incorrectly if I am. I grew up in a place called Valparaiso. Everyone called it Valparaiso, which is totally wrong. That's probably why we all just call it Valpo. This place,
it's because it's AI.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, that's the Spanish pronunciation is Valparaiso, and that's how we all say it. And Valparaiso is how people say it in, like, various other languages. Because I Googled, I'm like, how do you pronounce Valparaiso? And it was, like, various pronunciations based off of, like, the region. There's a Valparaiso down in, I think, Chile. So I'm going to keep going. But Busco is like the abbreviation of Churubusco, and I think that's why this thing is just called the Beast of Busco, because it rolls off the tongue a lot easier. But anywho, this cryptid comes from Busco, Indiana, and dates back to 1898. Y'all remember 1898, right? It totally fucking sucked. No joke, 1898 did suck. There's like the Spanish-American War going on, which wasn't cool. The Wilmington Massacre happened. If you don't know what that is, you could Google it if you want to get depressed. It's basically a bunch of pieces of shit doing horrible things and killing people. It's just no bueno. But in Busco, Indiana...
Is that the year that Fred Astaire was born?
1898?
It's either 1898 or 1899.
I have no idea. I am not well-versed in the birth of Fred Astaire. I apologize.
I'm pretty sure.
If it is, there you go. That's one thing good that happened in 1898. In Busco, Indiana in 1898, some dude named Oscar Folk was out and about on his own land. His land was pretty big. It just happened to have a 7-acre lake on it. Imagine having a plot of land that has a lake that's 7 acres big.
You own that.
That's yours. That's your lake. It's not God's lake. That's your lake. While near his lake, Oscar claims to have seen something massive and monstrous. It had a face with a hooked beak and black beady eyes. Its skin was covered in leathery scales, and it had a massive, hard carapace with spikes on its back. And he told people after he saw it, guys, I saw the biggest fucking alligator snapping turtle I've ever seen in my life.
It's actually Bowser.
It might be. This thing should be called Bowser. You're 1,000% right. And no joke, the Beast of Busco is supposed to be an alligator snapping turtle. It's not thought of as like a cryptid like how Mothman is thought of, or like the lizard man of South Carolina. This thing is supposed to just be like an enormous version of an animal that actually exists. The dimensions he describes the creature are just way too big.
Well, I don't know if you've seen that new baby penguin. That
giant baby penguin that's bigger than all the others, even though it's a baby. Yeah, it's like gigantism, like monsterism. I don't think monsterism is the thing. I think I just made up that word. But gigantism is an actual thing. Where you're like, there's a mutation, there's something wrong with your pituitary gland, and you just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Happens all the time in the animal kingdom. That must be what happened here. Because he told folks that this thing was 6 feet long as a man laying down. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen an alligator snapping turtle in real life. I have. Growing up in Indiana, there was a neighbor that had one. These things are honestly fucking horrifying. They really are. They look like Bowser. They look like an evil creature because they're just like covered in jagged points. And they move slow when it comes to walking speed. But biting, it's like lightning fast. It's like a snake, how it coils and like shoots out.
Is it those snapping turtles you see like online and stuff all the time? Okay.
Well, they just destroy.
Those things aren't that big,
though. That's the thing, is that they're only around 30 inches. The biggest one ever recorded, I think, was like 28 inches, and it weighed in at 250 pounds. So if this thing is 6 feet long, that means it's well over 500 pounds. And huge. It's the back of its shell would probably be taller than a person.
Anytime anybody talks about these things or you see videos of these things, this thing, if it bit your finger, would take your finger right off.
Right off. Clean off the bone. Yeah. It's got a bite force, a normal size one, has a bite force of 1,000 PSI, which is 6 times more powerful than a human. And it's got that beak like it was sent from hell that's made of the carapace where it just like shears through bone. It's like meant to chew up carcasses. It's horrifying.
Are our mouths powerful enough to rip people's fingers off?
I mean, if you really tried, I'm pretty sure you get it off. Gollum did it, and he was like kind of like us.
But he's not a human.
I mean, they're basically tiny humans. River folk, halflings. I mean, they're called halflings. They're half a human. So, I don't know. We'll check with Faye on that one. She's the doctor and the Hobbit expert. So, they're horrifying when you see them in real life, but they're not so imposing that you think, okay, this is a cryptid. But if you were to see one that was 6 feet long, you'd be like, guys, there's something on my land that I'm pretty sure is from hell. Oscar told these people, and then after telling his like friends and family or whatever, he was like, all right. And he just went on with his life. Like, what are you going to do? And people probably doubted him enough to be like, I'm sure he saw something, but I don't think it was that big. Like, they didn't think he was a crackpot. They probably just thought he was like a bullshit artist.
Okay.
And then life goes on. Fast forward to July 1948. You all remember 1948, right? That's the year Israel was created, in case anyone was wondering.
It's like 50 years later.
And then after, Israel was created, nothing controversial or scary or sad or bad ever happened there, ever. So we'll go ahead and move straight on.
Okay.
Anyways, back to Busco. 2 dudes named Ora Blue and Charlie Wilson were fishing on Oscar Folk's lake, which was now known as Folk Lake, because he used to own it. He does not own it anymore.
They are about to find the ring.
Yes.
At the bottom of the
one
lake.
of them gets dragged off the boat
and
because
they're going
the
to
Beast of
strangle the
Busco
other
bites
one.
his line and he finds a ring at the bottom of the lake. No. When they come back from their fishing trip, they reported seeing a massive alligator snapping turtle And the owner of the land, who was at the time a person named Gail Harris, is like, oh yeah, I've seen that thing. It's a fucking beast. And then a year later, the owner of the land, who's Gail, and his friend Orville Reese. Orville is a popular name in Indiana for anyone who knows. Orville Redenbacher's from Valparaiso, Indiana. What up, Popcorn Fest? Anyways,
okay.
Gail and Orville see this thing. They're redoing his roof on his barn, and it's so big. They see it come out of the water. They're like, that's the fucking beast of Busco right over there. So they do what two people would do if they saw a horrifying giant creature, and they decide they're going to chase it. And it goes back into the lake, and they get on a boat, and they chase it, and they just wind up not catching it. So they tell people, like, we just keep seeing this thing, and it's huge, it's real, and it gathers enough belief within the town that the group of people in the town decide, like, let's find it. And I think the intention here is to capture or kill it, not just confirm its existence. So they tried draining the lake in a bunch of different parts to see if they could locate it, and then they put a bunch of motorboats on the lake to try and, like, drive it out.
Hell yeah.
They just put a bunch of titties and their face between them. But, like, they eventually try and get this thing to show itself or at least flee. It does not. And after 1950, they basically say, like, we don't know where it went. We'll keep our eyes out, but we're not going to go hunting for it. And that's kind of the end. But in 1950, they decide a few things. One is that the Beast of Busco, as cool of a name as it is, isn't a good name for the beast itself, so they name it Oscar, after Oscar Folk, who owned the land, who was the first person to see it. And they just say his name is Oscar from now on. And they start a festival called Turtle Days. Turtle Days is to celebrate Oscar, the turtle. And it's still going on to this day. It takes place in June. There's a parade, a carnival, and a turtle race. And I'm not sure if it's like you dress your kids up like turtles and race them, or if it's like you bring a turtle and race them.
It's got to be bringing a turtle.
Either way, it's totally awesome. And I kind of love it. It definitely reminds me of Popcorn Fest back home, but Orville Redenbacher actually existed. So it's
You're
just
saying
funny.
This thing doesn't exist?
It's probably dead now. I did Google, and turtles can live for quite a long time, but if it was already 6 feet long in 1898 and it's 2024 now, it's like 126 years later, it's probably dead. Or it had regular sized children, so anytime people like race a turtle, you might be racing a descendant of Oscar. You don't really know. But I'd say this is one of those cryptids that I absolutely believe is real. I think it was just a massive alligator snapping turtle. And it was either like a genetic mutation that made it huge, or a group of people who saw it, who are all fishermen, who have a tendency to bullshit, especially when it comes to the size of things.
Yeah.
And they did see a turtle, and they decided to say, it was the biggest turtle I've ever seen. But I do think it's highly plausible that this cryptid existed, like just as plausible as Mothman.
Could it have just been an actual alligator? I mean, 6 feet.
I mean, the shell really gives away the difference between an alligator snapping turtle and an alligator.
But an alligator...
And they are not native to Indiana at all.
Alligators also have spiky backs.
Yeah, but they don't have, like, shells. You would not see an alligator and be like, is that a fucking turtle? I don't think anyone's ever made that mistake before.
I mean, it's Indiana. You never know.
That's rude. And also pretty accurate.
Sorry.
But
it's a joke.
I would give the challenge rating of making this cryptid into a sexy Halloween costume very high. You're not going to have an easy time finding an alligator snapping turtle costume and being like, how does this accentuate my figure? So, best of luck, very high. Accept the challenge if you're willing, but on to the next cryptid. So, fun story. I covered a topic back on episode 223, I think it was, called the Piasa or Piasa. I forget. I had a problem pronouncing it during the episode, and I'm pretty sure I said it like 5 different ways. We had it on our topic list as Piasa-Underwater Panther, and it was never deleted. So when I looked to see whether or not we had covered this one yet, I was like, damn it, we have covered it. And I checked my script, and guess what? The Piasa is not an underwater panther. It's a massive bird that like eats people. There was this amazing legend from the Native Americans of the region it supposedly inhabited about like someone that went and fought it. It's a great episode. Go ahead and listen to episode 223 right after this one if you don't remember it. So I'm not sure how the wires got crossed there, or if it was supposed to be like 2 different topics that just like got put on the same line or whatever. So I was like, let me just Google underwater panther. Sure enough, it totally exists. It's a completely different cryptid with just a different name. The underwater panther is actually called and I'm going to try and say this right, Mishi Pishu. And it's from the indigenous people. The legend comes from the indigenous people of the northeastern woodlands and the Great Lakes region mainly. So it's another thing. It's like, I'm from the Great Lakes region. 2 cryptids I've never heard of. Like, this is crazy. So the Mishi Pishu
is an otter.
Translates to the Great Lakes. That's funny. So there's no mistaking this one for the bird. Like, it's got the head and paws of a big-ass cat, but it's also covered in scales. It's got spikes on its back like a fucking stegosaurus that run all the way down its tail, which is extra long, meaning that this thing is totally dope, and it would also fuck you right up. So if you're wondering where the cryptid lives specifically, it makes residence in the Great Lake known as, drumroll please, Lake Superior. Yeah, not Lake Michigan like where I grew up, so that's why I've never heard of this thing. At least 6 different North American tribes have legends that I was able to locate, probably even more than that, regarding this creature. The Algonquins believe that the Mishipishu is the most powerful underworld being in existence.
What?
Yeah, this thing is not to be fucked with.
Okay.
And the Chippewa refer to the creature as the master of all water creatures and snakes. So interesting that it just incorporates snakes, because sometimes they're in the water and sometimes they're not. So they're like, we're going to be in charge of you too.
So, okay. You've never heard of this.
No.
I mean, I've heard of an underwater panther before, but I feel like it was from like like America or Africa or something like that.
I've heard of underwater creatures, but nothing that's really like this. Like, underwater panther is only like part of its description, you know?
It's funny because there are so many creatures out there that, I mean, the turtle could have existed. This thing could exist. People didn't think that there would be things like platypuses.
Yeah, platypus for a long time was a straight up myth. They're
or
like,
narwhals.
that does not exist. And then when we found platypus, we're like, this thing is weird. It's ugly. Its bite, even though it's a bill, is venomous. It lays eggs, but also lactates. It's like, God got real confused when he made it. He just like shook up a bunch of
like
traits and just tossed it down.
A beaver and a duck,
like it's weird. It's a very weird creature, and that's funny you bring that up, because I was thinking about the giant octopus or something along those lines, about how that was always a myth until they fucking caught one, like a fisherman boat, like just caught one. They reeled it in. They're like, this thing is like 4 times bigger than the largest octopus ever caught. And they're like, oh, it's real. It's a real thing. Like
narwhals. You don't think narwhals are real?
I had to admit, when we took the tour of the Natural History Museum, when we got to the narwhals, that up until like 6 or 7 months ago, I think, I thought narwhals were completely fake. And like, if a unicorn doesn't exist, just a horse with a horn, that's mythological, not real. How the fuck do you expect me to believe? Like,
there's like a
slightly shorter manatee with a super long horn is real. Like, when we saw him, I'm just like, this is a hoax. This is Zaboomafoo all over. So yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. But anywho, yeah, it's clear that the Mishipishu cannot be mixed up with the Piasa, which is a flying creature. It's sort of like a different thing. But here's the reason I think they got mixed up, is because the legends from these Native American tribes say that, unlike the grand wheel of creation where everything's sort of laid out, some creatures have an opposite. And the Mishipishu is the direct counterpoint to the Thunderbird.
Oh.
Like, there's the Thunderbird and there's this thing, and they like are like mortal enemies. They represent completely different things. Okay. Everyone knows the Thunderbird. I also covered that. I didn't get my topic, but the Thunderbird, also known as Zapdos, Pokemon number 145, is like, it's a completely different thing.
So what about Articuno?
Articuno, I don't know. I don't know if there's a legend built.
What about Moltres?
You know what's funny though is like Zapdos is only 5 feet tall. It's like 5.3 feet tall.
How big's Pidgeot?
Thunderbird is way fucking bigger. I have no idea how big Pidgeot is, but he definitely has that fuckboy haircut that I'm not a fan of. So Zapdos and the Thunderbird are both flying electric type, so I think that's where the confusion comes in. And they don't reside in the Great Lakes region, but they do reside in the Kanto region, which is important.
Okay.
So, yeah. And the Galar region, but that's fucking weird because they're red and they're fighting flying.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's the Sword and Shield area. Like, Zapdos there is fighting flying. It's like, what's cooler, a bird that can punch you or a bird that can cast fucking lightning bolts?
Is that the game? No, Sword and Shield. I don't think I actually played through that one.
We bought them, but we didn't play them. Yeah. So
I'm just riding my little motorcycle dinosaur in my game right now.
You. Anyways, back to the Mishipishu. This thing is an underwater panther. We're covering it. Some folks describe this creature, and I love this description based off the art that I've seen and some of the cave drawings that exist that I'm going to post on our Instagram. They describe it as a cross between a cougar and a dragon, which is like badass. Like, if a kid was coming up with an animal, it's like, what would you want your animal to be like? A cougar and a dragon. Like, yeah, you pick some two awesome things. So it's basically an older dragon that just wants to like sleep with younger dragons. So
what the what?
Because it's a cougar. I really thought you were going to connect those dots. I tried to find dimensions on the creature, like how big it's supposed to be. And I just sort of assumed it would be the size of a panther with a really long tail. But some of the depictions and some of the paintings that were drawn show this thing like way bigger, like nearly the size of a ship, like horrifyingly big. And unlike the Beast of Busco, these guys were actually kind of dicks. They weren't just like out there living their life and like avoiding human beings. These are considered malevolent, cunning, and tricky.
Okay.
They guard, this is an actual place. It's Michi Picaten Island. It's a small island off the coast of Ontario in Lake Superior. It's like just across the border. Like, you know, like lakes have borders, even though they don't have actual lines drawn on them. Like a lake is split in half if it's like shared by two countries. So like at the border in Lake Superior where it becomes Canada, just north of that, just south of Ontario, is where this island is. So it's a real place. It's not very big.
Huh.
It's said to have copper on it, apparently. And the Mishu Peshu say basically that you're not allowed to have it. Like, stay off the fucking island. And anyone who comes near the island is assailed with violent waters that are stirred up by the creature. They cause massive waves, rapids, whirlpools. They can cause massive storms. It's basically to wreck any ships that try and come near it, to make sure that they don't get on the island. And they certainly don't leave with any resources that are on the island.
So... okay. Are there records of this?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of storms in that region in general.
Yeah.
But there's no records of, like, the Mishu Peshu popping up.
No,
Like, we're
but,
causing this. Get fucked.
But there's lots of records of, like,
we're going to get
shipwrecks.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely there's records of shipwrecks. The other thing they say that happens is in the winter, because it will freeze over. Like, I don't know if anyone's been to one of the Great Lakes in the winter, but they occasionally freeze completely solid near the shore, especially.
Shocking.
But if it's frozen and people try and walk to the island, they will break the ice so that you fall through.
So, okay. This is a stupid question now. You know The Dark Knight Rises or whatever, that movie?
Okay, which one? The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises?
The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, yes.
The one with JGL.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. That's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Rise.
Okay. So you know how they send JGL out onto the ice?
Yeah.
Is that... Okay, I know it's Gotham, all right? But, like, is that supposed to be one of the Great Lakes, kind of? Like, sending him out to...
Well, here's the thing. This is actually a really interesting question. So, very recently, Gotham has always been nebulous where it is. That's the thing that DC is very different from Marvel on. Their cities are made up, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Central City.
Yeah.
It's like Gotham, Metropolis. Like, fucking Marvel's just like New York. Like, these are in New York. This is upstate New York. Gotham has never had a location. The new Joker movie that's coming out, like, they're taking him to court. They showed him like the trailer and everything. Apparently, like, people are up in arms because they say it's the state of New York versus Arthur Fleck. So they basically say Gotham is in the state of New York.
Oh no!
And that's kind of always been assumed.
But
people are like
more
kind of
Chicago.
People are kind of pissed off about it, and I do think it's based off like kind of how you interpret it. I think it's supposed to be like, what's the big city near you that has nice places and really bad places? That's like what you picture Gotham as. So it's always been left nebulous on purpose, and now it's like canon.
Okay.
Where it's just like, okay, cool, like Gotham's in New
I'm
York.
kind of upsetty spaghetti too.
So answer to that, no, it wouldn't be a Great Lake they're putting people out onto because it's in New York. And there's not Great Lakes there. So
I feel like, okay, Metropolis
is New York.
That's
how it always has been in my head.
Metropolis is New York. And Gotham, for me, has always been, like, Chicago.
I was super confused when Batman vs. Superman came out, and it was like, Gotham's on one side of the river, and on the other side of the river is Metropolis. I was like, okay, cool, I like that, but now it makes no sense in my brain where one was New York and the other one was Chicago.
I'm sorry.
She keeps quoting this fucking TikTok where someone says, okay, I like it, Picasso.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't know that? You don't know that?
No,
it's like, it is not common knowledge in culture.
Apparently
that this random fucking TikTok is like now a catchphrase for people to use. Oh my gosh.
It's a lot older, but anyway.
So yeah, I'll go with no, it's not a Great Lake based off of that reason. But
it's sad.
If you're walking across the lake in Ontario and Lake Superior and you're trying to get to this island, the Mishu Pishu are going to be like, I don't think so. And they're going to break the ice that you fall through and die.
Okay.
Because they do not like people. So, worth noting, be careful if you're in that area. It is said that folks who used to inhabit this area, so like the Native Americans, the indigenous people, they did not consider these things as evil or malevolent because they didn't want the natural resource. They weren't there to pillage it. They actually were kind to them. They offer protection, healing, and medicine wrapped in bundles. They just show up like, here's some stuff to take home. And they're wrapped in bundles made of snake skin. So maybe that's why they wanted to be in charge of snakes, because they're like, we really like your skin. We think it'll make good wrappings for our medicine.
But they have cat hands.
Yeah, and they're awesome. They're super nice, apparently, if you're nice to them. If they're feeling particularly nice and they see you and you're out there fishing or hunting, because I don't know how they do this, but they like send good favor your way so that you'll like catch a lot, which is very nice of them. The one way I was able to find that you can get them on your side is if you offer them tobacco, which is weird. Like the Loch Ness Monster wants 350. We all know that. And the Mishu Peshu wants to bum a smoke. Like if you're low on smokes, I guess some dip will do.
Oh my God.
Which begs the ultimate question. How the fuck do they keep their smokes lit if they're an underwater creature?
Oh yeah, that's
So it's got to be dip. They got to just like pop up, put it in, and then go under.
Could it be that they're just run by a one entity who doesn't go underwater, but this guy...
He's like, bring me back the tobacco?
Yeah.
Their tobacco's going to get wet, though. So, I don't know.
Not if you cover it in snakeskin.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. So, I think we're starting to crack the case here. So, I know this shit all sounds like a legend. You're like, this is cool. It's not that scary. It's not like a cryptid. But back in 1897, y'all remember 1897, right? It was awesome. The first Boston Marathon happened in 1897. A British physicist named J.J. Thomson discovered electrons, which is like super important. And first drunk driving arrest. 25-year-old London taxi driver was driving shit-faced and was arrested on September 10th, 1897.
Okay.
The Brits really stepped their game up that year.
Was it September 10th, 1897, or was it October 9th, 1897?
No.
It
was written September 10th, and I put that there because I'm American.
Ah, okay.
September 10th. But back on Lake Superior in 1897, a group of people were yachting near Duluth, which I should point out, I've been to Duluth on both the Wisconsin side and on the Minnesota side, I'm pretty sure. And that is not near the island. It is not fucking that close. They were yachting and a man fell overboard. And like the group of folks like ran to the side to like toss him a life preserver. And they're like, oh my God, he's going to die. Swim. And he's like treading water. And they saw some sort of massive creature approach him while he was in the water. And it scared the fuck out of all of them. The guy's like, what's happening? And before he knows it, he's getting constricted by this thing that starts squeezing the life out of him. It empties the air out of his lungs.
I mean, that sounds like a snake.
But it's the tail. That's apparently the tail of this thing is what's doing it to him. Absolutely sounds like a snake. Don't get me wrong. They're in charge of snakes, so maybe it was doing their bidding. But this is like the most notable instance of a person being attacked that's like supposedly real from the time. The thing that I find fishy about this is the story ends at he was constricted, the air left his lungs, his eyes started to bulge, but he survived. So like, what did they like toss him fucking Lucy cigarettes? Like, here you go, man. Like, please let our friend go.
No, it sounds like it's a snake and they just were like, it's the thing.
Either way, it was horrifying, and the guy apparently lived. But after that, it became known as like the Mishu Peshu attack, and not to fuck with these things and to stay off Lake Superior, basically.
Maybe they just needed a cautionary tale. Maybe.
But whatever the case, it's, from what I can tell, where the story ends. We're not sure exactly how they got rid of him, but it's like, this isn't one of those mythological beings that just exists in like one story and then there's no sightings of it. It gets a lot of sightings similar to Nessie. Like, people are always taking pictures like, this looks like a weird snake with a thick body. And they post it. I think this thing is called Pessie. I've heard of that.
What?
I couldn't find it online. I didn't do a lot of Googling on it.
Because it's called the Mishu Peshu or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like from this specific region. But there's a lot of videos and stuff you can find online of this. There was a guy who took a video of it in 1977, supposedly. I looked up the video. It's really low quality. All you can really see is what looks like just two dark spots in the water that are stationary as the water's moving past it.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, those look like rocks. It looks like small rocks, which are supposed to be the head and the tail. And I was like, this doesn't look like a cat face. It looks like, if anything, if it's an actual creature, it looks like a giant fucking snake. It looks like a huge snake in the water that this guy had attack him apparently, and he showed his like backpack was all torn up and shit. And so there has been pretty consistent sightings of this thing, not necessarily attacks, for hundreds of years. So when I was reading through this, I'm like, okay, cool. This is kind of horrifying. The natives of the area, they used to draw rocks in areas where they had seen, or they used to draw on the rocks of areas they had seen it, like between 200 and 400 years old. I'll be posting a couple pictures of those. And they draw what essentially looks like a fucking panther with a long ass dragon tail. And it's, kind of cool, kind of scary. But if you're going to be in that area, I recommend taking tobacco.
Yeah.
Because apparently that's how you deal with it. So challenge rating on this cryptid for turning it into a sexy Halloween costume. I'd say moderate. Like, just combine a sexy cat costume and a sexy dragon costume, and you could probably get away with it.
Winning.
So there you go. I have one more to go over before we wrap this thing up. This one is from a beautiful mystical land called Scandinavia. For those of you who don't know what Scandinavia is, because I often get confused, it's a region, it's not a specific country, in Northern Europe. The countries most often associated with Scandinavia are Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. There's a few other smaller countries with like little islands that are independent nations. Sometimes Iceland is tossed in there as well. But these three specifically, if you're saying Scandinavia, are most often what you're referring to.
I'm glad you differentiated that it's a region and not a country, because this whole time I thought it was a country.
I kind of knew it wasn't a country because I've seen like maps before. But when people say Scandinavia,
I fucking looked at maps too, bitch.
When people say Scandinavia, I'm like, I think I know where that is, but I really don't know. So now I know.
Because I looked at maps.
I was also stupid, but I wasn't as stupid as you. So
like, I've looked at maps too, but I don't look that deep.
You confuse Ohio and Utah. I'm just saying. So I don't expect you to understand regions of Europe. So
it's funny because I made maps. I literally worked
That's
with
one of your
maps
jobs
for like 6 years.
Yeah.
Still don't know anything.
So in the mystical, legitimately beautiful region of Scandinavia, there is a legend of a creature known as a huldra. I've also seen it called a holder, but I'm just like, huldra is what I see most often, so I'm going to go with huldra because the Scandinavian websites that I could find that talk about it all say huldra. So I'm like, we're going to go with huldra. A huldra are said to be one of several keepers or wardens of nature and is described as a, quote, seductive forest creature.
All right. This is my guess of what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Super hot character. Don't know if it's like male, female, don't care. Maybe it's both. And it just has like long, foresty looking hair with like deer horns or something like that.
It's like a dryad.
Or something, yeah.
Okay, well...
Am I wrong? Like way off?
You're not way off, no. And I was like, did she look at some of the pictures I sent or read my script since it's been up on the screen? So here's this horrific description of this cryptid,
okay.
It's one version of the myth states that she is said to be a stunningly beautiful, naked woman with long hair. The depictions are always of blonde hair, by the way. If you see her from the back, though, she is hollow like an old tree trunk. So I'm just like, okay, that's weird. But in Norway specifically, no mention of the hollow thing. I don't see anything about her being hollow from the back. But if you're wondering what she looks like from the back, she's beautiful from the back as well, but she has a cow's tail.
Okay.
In Sweden, it's very similar to Norway, except she either has a cow or a fox tail. So, beautiful, beautiful woman with a tail is essentially what this cryptid looks like.
I don't even see that as a with a tail.
I think you're really going to enjoy this cryptid because she seems super cool.
Seems like my type.
Norway also describes her as a, quote, typical dairymaid, so wearing the clothes of a regular farm girl, essentially, although she is said to be substantially more beautiful than the ordinary dairymaid. I can imagine them talking about this cryptid as like, it looks like her, but hot. Like, it kind of reads very rude, but she's supposed to be like essentially some sort of, I won't say demigod, but like a denizen of the forest that's there to protect it.
Okay.
And represents the beauty of nature. So apparently at some point, I don't know how this connects. There was a lot of stuff about Odin, but Odin for some reason gets pissed off and decides like, I'm going to kill all of the Huldras and organizes a wild hunt to go into the forests and kill them. And then he starts calling down lightning and shit to take them out. But he's
like, order 66, let's go.
He does. He tries to order 66 of them, doesn't wind up getting them all, but they're thinned out substantially after that. But they survive. Nowadays, though, the Huldra will lure men into the forest too. And I'm not making this up. This is the legend. They lure men into the forest to have sex with them. And if you happen to satisfy her, she rewards you. No word on what the rewards are, but in most cases it's like they take care of folks, they give them like supplies or food or whatever. If you do not satisfy her, she in nearly all cases kills you.
So what you're saying is be good
yes.
at being patient And generous.
Be a generous lover with the Huldra for sure. And I'm just saying, if an ethereally beautiful woman lures you into the forest and is like, hola, let's bang. If you're good, I'm going to reward you. If you don't do a good job, I will fucking kill you. If she laid the stakes out, I honestly feel like most folks would be like stretching while they're taking off their belt. Like, all right, I guess I got to bring my A game.
I'm shocked that you covered a cryptid from Scandinavia and used Ola instead of
They're educated. Obviously, they know multiple languages.
I can't even. What a missed opportunity.
I looked a lot to see whether or not just not banging them is an option. Like, if you happen upon them and they're like, let's do it, your life depends on it. If you can say, like, can I just leave? Like that.
No, you just be like, if I die, I die.
No one ever mentions it. I'm guessing because no one has ever asked for that option. They're just like, all right, like, let's do this thing. Apparently, I don't know why this is the case. Huldra children are very, very ugly. And so they often steal cute human babies and replace them with their ugly kids.
So this is a little bit like
changeling-ish.
Yes.
They mentioned that it overlaps with that a little bit.
She's a forest creature, and changelings they like leave the kids in the trees and stuff, So, well, same vibes.
Yeah. Hunters apparently happen upon Huldra most often, which is not shocking because they're typically in the woods.
Yep.
And she's not super upset that they're hunting. They understand that's just something humans do to eat. If you're hunting for sport, I didn't see anything where they get super pissed. But it said that if you're charming and she likes you, or maybe you banged her really good, she'll blow down your barrel, which I was just like, there is a lot of subtext in that. But she'll blow down your barrel, and in parentheses I put, fuck yes. And after that, your rifle will never miss a shot again.
Children should not listen to this show.
I have marked every episode of this show explicit since we started.
Does it ask, like, are you over 18?
I think it's just like your phone settings or your app settings. If you have like stuff blocked that's explicit, they can't listen to it. So some hunters like cock balls. There you go. I'm using the explicit rating now. Some hunters never leave the forest. They're so enchanted by them, or maybe they did a good job banging them that they get to stay.
Okay.
They wind up being found in the forest. Just fucking crazy. Like they've lost it. They lost their marbles. And basically they say that you've surrendered your sanity to the Huldra. So there are a lot of legends, a lot of different stories out there where a Huldra will want to marry a human. And they often look for like farmer boys. I found a lot of legends of like farmer boys
and farmer boys.
Not necessarily like hunters. It's because they pose as a dairymaid, I think. But in order to like win their husbands or like win them over or make them fall in love with her, they say they're going to show them like a feat of strength. And the guys, I think a lot of times they're like, hey, I bet you I can do this thing. And if I do it, you have to marry me. And the guy's like, what is that thing? And they say something fucking crazy. And they're like, bet. And then they do it. And then they have to marry them. But most often what they say is like, I bet you I can bend a horseshoe straight, which, a human being couldn't do. If you had like, a forge and you were hitting it with a hammer, you can move the metal. They just take the horseshoe and they're like, Mree. And the guy's like, I guess we got to get married now. So sometimes the husbands in the stories are kind of dicks and they treat them poorly and they either leave or they like beat the shit out of the husband.
What the what?
But a lot of tales actually give them a happily ever after once they've been married. It said the reason that they want to get a ring put on it so bad is because the only way that their tail will go away is if they marry a human. And I'm like, but if you have a foxtail and that's his favorite part,
I'm not letting you get rid of it.
Yeah, like just stay together like Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Like you're not married, you're just together forever. I think they're still together. But they straight up just...
I'm pretty sure they're not.
That sucks. Now I'm sad. But the Huldra straight up doesn't take shit. Like there's a few stories of like, one chick got engaged to a guy and she said like, you have to keep it secret because he knew she was a Huldra. And he's like, absolutely, I'll keep it secret. And then he told all his friends, like, I'm banging this super hot forest Huldra. It's awesome. I'm going to marry her. She came back to get married eventually, and everyone knew she was a Huldra. And she's like, you're supposed to keep it secret, dick. And she beats the shit out of him with her cowtail.
What?
Like, she just takes her cowtail and she hits him so many times on the side of the head. One, he loses his wits, which means he's just, like, crazy or stupid. And he's deaf. So she's just like, you promised you wouldn't tell anyone. And she whips his ass and she goes back in the forest.
So this character is just awful. Domestic abuser.
No, I think she's like, you promised me something. I am a mystical creature that can straighten a horseshoe, follow through on your word, and then when you cross them, you betray them, they're like, there's consequences, you fucking dick. and they make the people live through the consequences or die, because if you don't have sex with them, well, because apparently they kill you out of disappointment. So yeah, it just depends on it. But like Iceland, this is interesting. I was looking at like modern day things, like parts of this myth. Iceland is said to build roads around certain forest regions. When people ask like, why don't you just go through the forest? They're like, that's where the Huldra live. They straight up are just like, this is part of the myth. We'd rather not. And they just like go around. They do detours around certain forest regions rather than go through them, because they're like, the mystical hot ladies live there and we don't want to make them mad. So thought that was super interesting. For the most part, the Huldra appear to be kind, and they help out people that they meet if they're good people who are respectful, or they are good at sex. If you're not good at sex, they will fuck you right up or kill you. Which, let's be honest, for most of those things sounds entirely reasonable. Like, if you're nice to them, they're nice to you. If you're not nice to them, they're not nice back, except that they're on a different level of, like, strength.
Retaliation.
I would say strength. It's like, they just, like, if you made me mad, and I had a tail, and I'm, like, hitting you with my tail, like, gosh, you made me so mad. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm super strong, and now she's deaf. Like, yeah, that would be unfortunate, but it's not like she punched his heart out like, in front of his friends.
Just not right.
So it's not entirely crazy, although it does seem excessive. All I know is that this is now one of my favorite cryptids, obviously, and we should totally visit Scandinavia because it's a beautiful country, and maybe hang out in the forest and see what's up. But challenge rating of making this cryptid into a sexy Halloween costume is extremely low as far as difficulty goes. As far as the pictures look, just buy a nice white dress and maybe a fox or cow tail and have yourself a great night. And if it's not a great night, do what you got to do, and just tell the judge you were in character when you eventually go to jail for murder.
If it's not a great night, I was going to say, just murder.
So, anyways, that, my spooky friends, are lesser known cryptids, or whatever I decide to name this topic.
Nice.
So,
enjoyable.
I hope you enjoyed
Good
that.
Start.
I was like, okay, each of these is too short, but maybe if I combine them into a single topic, which is still to be named, it could be fun. So, welcome to spooky season. We're happy to be back. We're in episode 301, so we're building towards episode 400. Who knows how long it'll take us to get there, but hey, I'm excited to be back here. So, fun times. That's everything I have for my topic. If you have anything you would like to share with us, it doesn't have to be about Scandinavian hot chicks in the woods that you met one time. It could 100% be about anything supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial, true crime, coincidental. If you want to share it, we have episodes. We haven't done one in a while. We're probably going to do one in the next couple of weeks, called Storytime, where we read your stories that get sent to us, and you can send them to our email, which is storytime@scaryish.com, or go to our website, scaryish.com, click on Contact Us, fill out that form, it comes directly to us, or hit us up on our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast, Twitter is @scarishpod, and Instagram is @scarishpodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryish podcast and check out all the tiers that we have available. Maybe you want to be like one of those people we shouted out at the beginning of the episode. Just take a gander, take a look around, take a little adventure, check out all the tags. And if you're not into the monthly subscription type thing, we also have coffee, ko-fi.com/scaryish podcast.
Those are one-time donations, and you don't have to worry about the repeating thing. I will say at this point, I think 2 episodes ago I mentioned that no one listens past the outro. No one listens to the point where we say bye.
And we got lots
And I was like, if you listen to this, just say, fuck you, Adam. And you're like, no, don't say that. Like, post a picture of a race car. We had a fuck ton of people comment with the picture of a race car. And I was like, okay, cool.
He had a lot of people tell him to fuck himself too.
I had like 3 or 4 solid people. I think only 2 people actually said, fuck you or go fuck yourself, Adam. To be fair, I did say to say that. Instagram apparently hides your comment if you actually say the F word.
Yeah.
So sorry, Garrett. He was the first person to post. And then we had a couple of folks in Discord that were like, listening kind of late, but fuck you, Adam. And then they posted a race car, so they did both. So it's nice to know that people still listen to it. But yeah, we're happy to be back. Episode 301 wrapped.
Let's do pumpkins this episode because start a spooky season.
Pumpkins this episode? I don't know
Yeah,
what you mean.
comment on the post.
Oh yeah, put a pumpkin on the post. There you go. I like that. That's super good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
This
that's everything I have for episode 301. So Robin, go ahead and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.